What's my name?
Jon Snow?
And why is my surname Snow?
Because you're a bastard from the north.
Love is the death of duty. In every man's life, there comes a day when he must choose.
I did what I thought was right. And I got murdered for it.
Kill the boy, Jon Snow, and let the man be born.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. Kit Harington just did a big panel this past weekend talking about the Game of Thrones Jon Snow sequel a little bit, so I'll explain what he said about the actual plot, what they're going to be covering during the actual series, because we have so many questions about what it's going to cover. If you're brand new to the channel, I will be doing videos for it just like I did for the original Game of Thrones series, just like I do for House of the Dragon. Be sure to subscribe to get everything. This is Kit Harington talking about what's going on with his character, where the events of the sequel pick up, and some of the stuff that they're going to cover. Not everything that they're going to cover, but some of it.
I think if you asked him, he would have felt he got off lightly. At the end of the show, when we find him in that cell, he's preparing to be beheaded. And he wants to be. He's done. Like, the fact he goes to the wall is the greatest gift to him. And also the greatest curse. He's got to go back up to the place with all this history and live out his life thinking about how he killed Dany. And live out his life thinking about Ygritte dying in his arms. And live out his life thinking about how he hung Ollie. And live out his life thinking about all of this trauma. And that's interesting. So, I think that when we leave him at the end of the show, there's always this feeling of like, I think we wanted some kind of little smile, things are okay. He's not okay. He's not okay. But it really goes down quite deeply to Jon's internal conflict, which is that he doesn't know who he is. He's never known who he is. First he identified with being a bastard, but he kind of wanted to be a Stark. And by the end of the show, there's this Targaryen thing thrown in as well. And we don't really see what is, where we don't get time to see where that sits with him. But I think that he's never really known. He's been told who he is all through his life. Been told who he could be, who he should be. He's actually quite far away from knowing who, and hasn't had time in our show to really center upon who Jon is. He doesn't have time to do that. But I think he's Jon Snow. He's not Jon Stark, and he's not Jon Targaryen. He's Jon Snow.
So obviously one of the big things that he talks about during that is that Jon Snow still has no idea who he is. He's been told who he is, like he's been given all these different identities, like this is who you are, you're Aegon Targaryen, no, you're Jon Snow, no, you're Jon Stark. And even at the end of season 8, he still has no idea who he is. And he's actually thankful that he's sent to the wall, like he's thankful for the punishment being banished from the realm. And a big part of what he's going to be doing during the series is dealing with all the things that he's had to do. Kill Daenerys. Hang Ollie, like he talks about killing Ollie, even though it was warranted, definitely wanted to get rid of that guy. Finally dealing with Ygritte's death, dying in his arms. So that's why he spent so much time talking about how unwell Jon Snow is, like he is not doing okay. There have been a couple news outlets reporting that the series is supposed to premiere in 2025. I don't know if that's going to wind up sticking. They haven't said anything about when they're going to start filming the series. But it sounds like they do plan to release this alongside House of the Dragon episodes, which I'm currently in the middle doing episodes for, like we're getting ready for House of the Dragon Season 2. At the convention, Kit Harington actually took a picture with Paddy Considine, who plays Viserys on House of the Dragon, and if you guys didn't know, Jon Snow and Daenerys both come from Rhaenyra's line, so he's like his great, many times removed grandfather. The big difference is that House of the Dragon takes place around 200 years earlier in the timeline, so it's a prequel based on the Fire and Blood Targaryen history book. It's about the huge Targaryen civil war called the Dance of the Dragons, when there were tons of dragons all over Westeros. The Jon Snow Game of Thrones sequel series will take place after the events of Game of Thrones Season 8, after Jon Snow left to go north of the Wall with the Wildlings, Tormund, and Ghost. So as of right now, them announcing that this Jon Snow sequel is actually happening with Kit Harington, there are many Game of Thrones spin-off sequels and prequel shows they're doing, but only some of those will wind up actually turning into episodes that we'll actually be able to watch on television. House of the Dragon is just the first one that's made it to actual episodes. I will explain all the other shows that they're working on later in the video, and I know a lot of you are also asking if this affects Kit Harington playing the Black Knight for Marvel inside the Eternals movies, inside Midnight Suns, and any other big crossovers with Avengers 5. I will address that later in the video too. The big thing that I think a lot of people are confused about is that Dan and Dave are not involved with any Game of Thrones anything anymore. So just because HBO is doing a sequel doesn't mean that Dan and Dave are coming back. If you did not like what they did with the show, especially towards the last couple of seasons, don't worry, they are not involved with anything creatively or anything like that. One of the big things that they didn't do from the books that they could always introduce during the show, one new twist for this character, is the idea of his wolf dreams and being a warg. In the books, all the Stark children who still have direwolves that continue living throughout the series continue to have wolf dreams, which is a version of warging, like they're low-level warging without realizing it. You mostly see this play out through Arya's storyline because she sees visions of Nymeria running around through the woods, feeling like she is Nymeria running around through the woods. So when people make jokes about Jon Snow having a wolf brain, that's what they're talking about, like him actually being a warg. It's just the TV show never bothered to do that. When the original show ended, Kit Harington and the other main cast members were kind of iffy about coming back as their characters because everybody did ask them, are you all coming back for sequels? And they're like, well, we don't know. Right after Season 8 finished, the only one who was like, definitely I will come back, was Maisie Williams, coming back as a version of Arya. She actually just filmed new scenes as Arya for Warner Brothers as part of their big multiverses game. That's not meant to be canon to A Song of Ice and Fire or Game of Thrones. That's like a completely separate game based on all the IP that Warner Brothers owns. So that's how you have Arya from Game of Thrones interacting with DC comic book characters. This Game of Thrones sequel series is legit Kit Harington coming back as Jon Snow after the events of Season 8 to just continue the story for at least his character. Now, they haven't been totally clear on exactly how much they're going to cover in the show. Like, is this going to be a Better Call Saul kind of sequel series, even though that's meant to be a prequel? Like, will it just focus on a specific group of characters and have cameos from people from the original show? Or will it be the Breaking Bad movie where it's more of a one-off mini-series kind of thing set after the events of the previous story? But I did a bunch of videos after the Season 8 finale aired for all the deleted scenes and these alternate endings, alternate storylines that they cut from the finale, so I'll link that below in the comments and at the end of this so you can learn about everything that would have happened. But the Game of Thrones sequel series will take place a little while after Jon Snow went north past the Wall. The big thing in the kingdom right now is that the Wildlings with Jon Snow Ghost have gone back beyond the Wall, and even though they've defeated the Night King and therefore killed all the White Walkers, the Whites that they raised, there's no more need for the actual wall, like it serves no actual purpose anymore. Originally, it was created 8,000 years ago after the First Long Night with the combined help of Bran the Builder, who at the time was King of the North. He was the Stark's ancestor. He wasn't secretly the three-eyed raven version of Bran, time-traveling with his powers. There were all kinds of crazy theories about that. Bran the Builder was meant to be a completely different character that was an ancestor to these modern-day characters, who Bran and all of his predecessors with the same name were named for. On the show, the big difference is they condensed the timeline, so instead of the Long Night being like many thousands of years ago, it was closer to being 1,000 years ago. Still a long time, but not nearly as long. But now in present day, Three-Eyed Raven Bran has become King of the Seven Kingdoms, Samwell is his Grand Maester, Tyrion is his Hand of the King. The way they portrayed things is the realm has been to be kind of torn on what he did killing Daenerys. Like, some of the realm supported Jon Snow, and some of them supported Daenerys. But even though Jon Snow still technically has a claim to the Iron Throne, the Great Council that they formed in this finale scene basically chose Bran to be their new king. So the realm supports Bran as king. But after the fact, after this all plays out, he's portrayed as kind of a controversial figure of legend amongst people in the Seven Kingdoms. But everybody pretty much knows that he went north of the Wall, and outside of his sister Sansa, who's ruling over Winterfell in the north, really close by, no one else is really worried about Jon Snow that much. Like, no one's really thinking about what's going on with the Wildlings because they're not even that large of a group. And even Bran, who you think would be concerned about his brother, Jon Snow, is more like a human turnip, like a repository for all of history, so his personality is more like an AI. He just spits out facts and details about things from across history anytime you try to talk to him. And Arya has still left Westeros to go to the western continent on the other side of the Sunset Sea to just explore what's west of Westeros. Gendry's now Lord of the Stormlands, and if it wasn't clear, obviously Jon Snow is leading the Free Folk. Tormund is kind of like his second in command. But a lot of you are asking, who's going to be the main villain of this show if it's going to be centered on Jon Snow? Like, what's the central conflict? If they defeated the Night King, the White Walkers, all the Whites, the undead minions, and the animals they raised? Well, they haven't said if this is only going to take place up in the north beyond the Wall, or if it'll be like a big sprawling political thriller the way the first show was. But like now in present day, because there's no more Night King, there are no more spiders big as hounds. There are still a couple groups in the world of Essos that hate the Seven Kingdoms in general and hate Jon Snow for killing Daenerys, so like he's still hated by a lot of people around the world. And there's further internal conflict, civil war, brewing between different kingdoms inside Westeros. Like, just because they beat the Night King, beat Cersei, everyone went home, doesn't mean that everyone in Westeros and Essos now love each other. One of the big themes in George R. R. Martin's The Song of Ice and Fire series is that time plays out in a circular nature, like events always have a way of repeating themselves, people always make the same types of mistakes. They haven't confirmed everybody that's coming back for the show, like Sophie Turner would probably come back because Winterfell is right there next door south of the Wall. It would be weird for them to do this whole ass show about Jon Snow for 5 seasons and to not show you what's happening at Winterfell or any of the other 7 kingdoms. So I believe, Better Call Saul style, they will try to feature people from the original cast. The biggest antagonists left alive at the end of the main show were the forces of Slaver's Bay, the Iron Bank, who really wants their money back. There's all the forces of the Free Cities, there's what's left of the Dothraki, the rest of the Unsullied, even though Grey Worm implied at the end of the main show that he was taking the Unsullied, or what remained of them, to Noth, the island where Missandei originally came from in the Summer Isles, and the Dothraki seemed like they were eventually going back to Essos. And there are a lot of other kingdoms that they didn't feature during the main show, like other places in Essos we didn't go or didn't see a lot of. Really good example is the forces of Ashai in the Shadowlands. That's the place where Melisandre originally came from. Right now, the other shows they're still working on are the Nymeria and the 10,000 Ships set in the past. There's one specifically about Corlys Velaryon the Sea Snake. There's a Dunk and Egg series based on the books about those characters. Remember, it's Sir Duncan the Tall, who's the ancestor of Brienne the Tarth, and Egg is really Aegon V, the future king of Westeros. It's also a prequel series, but he's the younger brother of Maester Aemon. There are also a couple different animated Game of Thrones series that they're working on, but we don't know as much about what's going on with the plot of those. And the whole thing with Kit Harington coming back as the Black Knight inside the Marvel Universe is that I believe that's mostly meant to be cameo status right now. I think for a little while people were wondering if they would do a Black Knight series on Disney+. It sounds like they're not doing that now, and he'll just be in future movie crossovers, and that's why he has so much extra time to do this full, big Game of Thrones sequel series. But everyone post all your theories in the comments below. Who do you want to be the villain of this new Jon Snow sequel series? I will do more videos for it when we get more trailers and details. Because we're getting ready to film House of the Dragon Season 2, I'll be doing bonus videos for that just like I did for the main series. Be sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss that. Everyone click here to learn about the House of the Dragon alternate ending and deleted scenes, and click here to learn about the Game of Thrones alternate ending and deleted scenes with Jon Snow and the other characters. Thank you so much for watching, everyone stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.